Welcome to another episode of Bar Talk, where lawyers get together for a roundtable talk about legal topics that interest you. Tonight's show is lined up with juvenile laws have changed in Cook County, so we're going to talk a little bit about it. We're going to talk about duties for successor agents of powers of attorney, and we're going to talk about how domestic violence impacts your divorce. Hi, ladies. How are you?
Hello.
Hi, Dina.
Which one of you wants to go first?
Well, regarding juvenile law, I'll go first because I have an interest in that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I've heard laws have changed. What's going on?
Well, the most notable thing is that now we are doing hearings 365 days a week for juvenile detainees.
Wow.
We were not doing that before.
What was
That's
it?
pretty huge.
Yeah, it's huge. It was by the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Evans basically declared it on Friday.
So is the idea that you don't want to hold them in detention over the weekend and not move forward?
Up until now, we were holding children in jail over the weekend when they were arrested on a Friday after the probable cause.
So they were just in a holding period until they got their hearing.
all weekend long.
Whereas now
Without a charge.
they have a hearing the next day. Is that what it is?
Right. The next day at 11 a.m., regardless of what day it is.
And so before, was it only weekends off? And it was just
Saturday and Sunday.
Hearings were 5 days a week?
Or any holiday. If the court is closed, you could wait until Tuesday.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah, this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
so did it take more resources for...
Well, it took an administrative order by the judge. So, to the Supreme Court judge. So.
Okay, but did they have to
I
hire
mean, the
on...
chief judge, sorry.
Did they have to hire on more people to stay,
I would imagine they would because, this courthouse, on basically the juvenile courthouse on Roosevelt and Ogden has been operating this way for a long time. And so now, this is pretty new. I would assume there would be more hours of work. So, yeah. There will be a cost, but I don't think it'll be as high as incarceration because it never is.
So does this mean now that attorneys have to work weekends?
Sure, yeah. But that's exactly, adults had these rights long before. We hold hearings for adults 365 days a year, and we don't extend the same rights to children. It really is remarkable if you think about it.
I had no idea that we had hearings
Yeah.
on Saturdays and
There's
Sundays
bond
for
court
adults.
7 days a week. Bond court is 7 days a week.
Okay, so it really isn't changing the landscape for an attorney. These attorneys that were representing adults were coming in Saturdays and Sundays too if they needed to.
Right. Juvenile criminal defense attorneys had weekends off.
Okay, interesting.
And not necessarily anymore.
Do we have any other changes with juvenile laws?
Yeah, well, we are no longer shackling youths children in the courtroom.
When you talk about children, you're talking about under 18.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and that's another change. We've raised the age to 18. It used to be 17. It used to
So
be
it's
that
18 and under is
Yes.
considered
a juvenile.
a juvenile.
So is there going to be some discretion in terms of perhaps what the charge is? If you have a violent offender, is it going to be the same as if someone was arrested for petty theft?
Well, the amazing thing is that it used to be pretty wide discretion. It was basically something that the jail could decide or the courthouse could decide. And now it has to be by special hearing. If you want to have a child shackled in any way in the courtroom, whether it's just wrist cuffs, you could, back before this rule, you could have the waist, the ankles, and that creates a bias to judges and juries. So there was no way to control that. And now...
So do you think that there are going to be problems that come out of these new rules?
Well, I'm sure that the first time somebody tries to run out of the courtroom, they're going to say that this was a bad idea, right?
Yeah, probably. Well, it's interesting how we've changed these rules, but we're going to stop and take a break, and we'll be right back.
Packers.
Vikings.
Packers.
Viking. Vikings.
Red state, blue state, vegan,
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
downtown,
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live.
our families,
United.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
I wouldn't have been at this ceremony if I hadn't been at this ceremony first. Unfortunately, nearly 30% of U.S. high school students aren't making it to graduation. And every one of us, every parent, every friend, and neighbor, has the responsibility to provide the support and encouragement they need to make it through. Because we all need to see a lot more of these pictures.
we're back. And I want to talk to you ladies about agents under powers of attorney. So you know what that is, right? Where you name someone an agent, and that person then has the right to act on your behalf if you're unable to. And powers of attorney can be, they can be effective right away, or you can make them effective on a future date. Oftentimes, the person preparing your power of attorney is going to ask you, well, if your first choice doesn't work out, who do you want to name as your second choice? And it's a good idea because, you know, that way you have one document that covers you. If you are incapacitated or unable to do something, you have your agent. But then if that person can't do it, you have someone as a backup. So what I wanted to tell you was, you might not realize, but that person who is named as the successor agent, they have duties. They have duties as a result of being named the successor, even if they're
Really?
not acting.
Well, what if you never actually need the power of attorney to come into effect?
If
Like,
you never,
say, for example, you create a power of attorney because you are going to Europe and you're not sure if you're going to make it back because you're going to be out of the country.
Okay.
And goodness knows what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And so you decide you want to create this document in the event you need someone to handle your affairs.
Right.
But let's say you cancel the trip and it's no longer needed.
well, did you make the document effective immediately?
Yes.
Okay, so if you make it effective immediately, you have it there to use, but if your agent is not using it, you know, you haven't, there hasn't been any wrong committed, or, you know, there hasn't been anything done. But I think what I'm trying to focus in on is that if you're named as a successor agent, you may not realize that by virtue of having your name on there, you do have a duty imposed, even if you're not the acting agent. And the duty is, if you know of the primary agent committing some kind of conflict of interest on behalf of the principal, then you have a duty to either give notice to the principal, or you have a duty.
Interesting.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Right, or
Interesting.
you know, if you can't give notice to the principal, like let's say, for example, the principal is incapacitated. So, you know, you cannot talk to them because they cannot understand, you know, what you're trying to tell them. Well, then you have a duty to try to limit the harm to that principal. But the trick
So
is
you have
that
to take affirmative actions to.
if you know about it, that's the thing. You do have a
Amazing.
duty. And if you have
you can't
the
just
knowledge,
say so and so's handling it; it's their problem.
well, see, that's you can't say so and so's handling it if you know what so and so is doing is something that's in conflict.
It seems like a fine line, doesn't it? Because I could look at what someone's doing and say I would do it differently, but I don't know. At what point can you say, okay, that's something I have to act on?
Well, it's when it's a breach, you know.
Okay.
So it's when somebody is doing something wrong. So if you are the daughter of a woman who has a power of attorney and you are her agent, and then your sister is the successor agent. Now, if daughter is taking mom's money and mom doesn't know about it and she's spending mom's money for her own nails, if sister knows about it, sister has a duty to inform mom, or if mom is incapacitated, then she has to take actions to reasonably safeguard mom's assets.
I can see how we would want to encourage that kind of behavior, but I guess I'm a little bit hesitant to think that maybe the successor agent might have their own ulterior motives, and maybe they want sister to get in trouble so that they can in turn be the agent for their ailing mother.
And go get their own nails done.
Isn't that a risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a risk.
Does that
but
happen a lot? I mean, do people falsely accuse each other of breach?
Well,
I
don't,
certainly think
you
in
know
a
what?
contentious
I don't
family,
think
it's
that.
entirely
I could
possible.
see it. It's so easy to picture.
Yeah, I'm not sure if falsely accusing someone would be as accurate as saying, I think a lot of people have suspicions that something is wrong. And whether that's true or not comes out in the process of going through the hearing and you get the evidence. And so sometimes suspicions can be cleared up, but I don't know that that's the same
Yeah.
as saying someone, you know, was. I'm not sure that that's like saying it was false from the beginning. Well, I just wanted to let you know that if you're named as a successor agent in somebody's documents, don't think you're all the way off the hook, because
Very important
you do have some
information.
you do
It's
have
good
some
to know.
duties right away.
I don't think people would
I had
guess
no
that.
idea.
I would never know that.
So we're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be back.
I wouldn't have been at this ceremony if I hadn't been at this ceremony first. Unfortunately, nearly 30% of U.S. high school students aren't making it to graduation. And every one of us, every parent, every friend, and neighbor, has the responsibility to provide the support and encouragement they need to make it through. Because we all need to see a lot more of these pictures.
Packers. Viking. Packers. Viking. Viking.
Red State, Blue State, Vegan,
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown,
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live
our families,
United.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
Welcome back. Now we're going to talk about how domestic violence impacts your divorce. Ish, I want to hear about this.
Well, I don't know if you ladies are aware, but October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I thought it would be good for our viewers to know, sometimes if you're in the middle of a domestic violence relationship, you might be wondering about whether or not you should file for divorce. And I always encourage women, men, you know, we certainly understand that domestic violence is perpetrated by both, so I never want to be gender specific.
Right.
But if you are a victim in a domestic violence relationship, I certainly hope that you are able to seek help. I want our viewers to know that there are a lot of resources out there. You can call the domestic violence hotline and you can start to speak to a counselor or an advocate with regards to safety planning. So I just wanted to put that out there first.
And I hope that anybody who's in an abusive relationship like that takes a step to get out.
Absolutely. But the one thing I want to make sure our viewers understand is that when it comes to the court system, the role that domestic violence plays is probably not what they're anticipating. And I wanted to highlight two very important areas of the law. The first being that Illinois is a no-fault divorce state. So the fact that he was abusive to you, maybe there was
None of that
mental
matters, right?
cruelty, they don't care anymore. All we care is that you are no longer getting along, and we call that irreconcilable differences.
Is it true that they don't care? I mean, wouldn't it influence the judge a little bit, for example, in a custody?
Well, that's a really good point, Christina. When it comes to the kids, so there are two main parts of a divorce. If you have children, deciding who's going to be the primary decision maker and who's going to have parental responsibilities is a very important part of the divorce. However, when courts look at what's in the best interest of the children, whether or not one of the parents is a perpetrator of domestic violence is just a factor. They can take it into consideration, but there's no telling how much weight they're actually going to give it.
But don't you think they would give it a lot of weight? I mean, if someone has a history of domestic violence, it seems like it would be
Wouldn't that make you
immoral
an
not
unfit
to make
parent?
it, not to give it a weight.
Not necessarily, because the way the courts look at it is just because your partner was abusive towards you doesn't mean that they're going to be a poor parent and doesn't mean that they're going to abuse the children.
What? Isn't there a correlation between the tendencies? I mean,
I would think so. I think most people would assume there
this
is.
is
It
this
would be
is like
shocking.
saying
Very, very
I mean, this is like saying a
shocking
split
for-
personality. This person has a split personality. He's
One
or
way
she
with
is
the
this
kid.
way.
I've
And-
actually worked with a number of families where it is absolutely possible for partners to disagree, to have problems, to not be able to get along, and to even perpetrate abuse between themselves, and yet not let that affect the children.
Yeah, but that's when, you know, at this time of divorce and the children are at this age, which a lot of times, isn't it true that it happens when children are younger? But then as children get older, issues get bigger, emotions get stronger, and if someone has a propensity to lose his or her temper, you would think that there would be a strong correlation between the way they handle stressful situations regardless of whom it's with, And so that should be an important
I definitely
factor.
agree with you. I think we're talking about a continuum here, and it's just important for individuals to know that a lot of times the abuser does end up with the children. It's possible. It's entirely possible.
Wow.
One shouldn't be surprised. And the other factor I want to mention real quickly is that there's a maintenance law in Illinois that states that if you make more than your spouse, when you are filing for divorce, let's say you've been the breadwinner, you have twice or 3 times the income of your spouse, even if he or she perpetrated domestic violence against you, you might still be liable for maintenance, and you might have to
Wow.
pay them support for a
That is
significant
shocking.
Well,
period
that
of
to me
time.
actually makes more sense because the money,
Well, when you-
the income.
But doesn't it seem a little unfair that if you're a victim in the relationship and you're trying to flee this relationship, should there be a cost to you? Should you have to support the very person who caused this degree of physical and emotional harm in your life? There's something that seems a little
I
bit
find
off
that
about that.
unjust. I mean, that strikes me as unjust that you would get you know it's hard to assuming it's hard to get out of that relationship that then you have to turn around and pay maintenance to that person.
Well,
For
we're
another
gonna have to take it
time.
up another time. I know. I hear what you're saying, and we can spend a lot more time on this
The
topic.
law can be a little bit.
But we're gonna go to a commercial break. Join us in a few minutes.
I wouldn't have been at this ceremony if I hadn't been at this ceremony first. Unfortunately, nearly 30% of U.S. high school students aren't making it to graduation. And every one of us, every parent, every friend, and neighbor, has the responsibility to provide the support and encouragement they need to make it through. Because we all need to see a lot more of these pictures.
Packers. Viking. Packers. Viking. Viking.
Red State, Blue State, Vegan,
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown,
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live
our families,
united.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
We're back, and we're going to talk about our hot topic tonight, which is how social media affects your case. And that's social media that you as the client are posting and forwarding and doing. So
No, don't do it. Don't.
that's what you think? Well, I'm
That's-
sure it comes up a lot in family law.
In family law cases, rule of thumb is if you absolutely can, please close your accounts. You don't need to be on Facebook. You don't need to be posting on Instagram for half a second.
What if the posts are neutral or positive? I mean, what if they're, pictures of you and your kids?
I think that we're all human, and when you're going through a very stressful situation in your life, we all have a tendency to want to share, right? We think we want our friends to feel sorry for us.
Or to vent.
We want to vent. There are so many reasons.
Yeah, I think you can get a lot of support.
why You could get a lot of support, but you can also get into a lot of trouble because.
But
people
isn't
need
it
to-
trouble only if you're posting things that are negative or?
Absolutely not. I have several divorce clients in the past who have been posting where they are out having drinks with their paramour and where they would like to fly and spend lots of money, which are still marital funds, for purposes outside of the marriage. It can get you in a lot of trouble because all of this information is discoverable. This is evidence. And why would you want to put it out there for it to be used against you?
Is it evidence even if your account is private?
So there is no such thing as private, in my opinion. As long as you have a friend who has a friend who has a friend, we're going to be able to get to those accounts, and it's not going to look good.
Are attorneys out there mining that information?
Oh, absolutely. Christina, I don't know if you've had this experience or
Oh,
not.
well, I know for a fact that the state's attorney's office looks at Facebook when they're checking on alibis, when they're looking at where, in case somebody posted what their whereabouts are. Obviously, it's a more thorough search than they sometimes do, but if it's a high stakes case and they're very interested, they'll look at your Facebook. And it's amazing. A lot of people have public accounts and don't know. You might think it's private.
That's the thing. I think they changed those settings.
I think so too.
Without even
Default?
telling you.
Right.
And when you do these updates and you just click right through the I agree or yes, upload or, update it, yeah, I don't think you're always realizing how the how the controls change. Because actually recently, a friend of mine was talking about how apparently there's a microphone setting that is turned on on your phone if you have the app downloaded.
Oh, wow.
And so you might not have the app open, but the microphone is on.
The Facebook app?
It's set to be on all the time.
Oh, wow.
It's a little.
It's a little scary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It was a little bit like Big Brother. But do you guys think there's any case where, you know, posting on social media can be good for your case? I mean, can you use it to your advantage? I know there's a lot, you're saying there's a lot of risks, and people tend to use it in a way that is detrimental. But is there a way that you can actually help your case?
Well, I'm sure that there have been cases, I haven't seen any, where, you know, an alibi does check out on Facebook. I haven't seen it, honestly. I've never seen a good thing come out of
That hasn't been our experience, but it doesn't mean it's not possible.
But it's very easy to imagine that if somebody has an alibi and no one, you know, no one else can corroborate it, but it's on Facebook, it might help.
I mean, that's a very simple example.
Like
I
I'm
would think
walking by
that
myself
if you're
on the
saying
beach.
I was at Harry Carey's, you know,
well,
the night this happened.
That's not going to work because there would be some evidence that you were there. There would be a receipt, maybe they'd ask for that stuff. But let's say that you say you take pictures on the beach. I'm walking by myself on the beach.
Yeah.
Nobody knows you're there. Nobody saw you go there, but it's documented on Facebook. That could help you.
Yeah.
Unless
That's
where the
better.
murder
That's an even
occurred.
better example. Yeah. Right.
Right. Yeah. So
I think an important thing to realize too is sometimes you get friend requests and some people just accept them and they don't know who is actually behind that identity. Now, attorneys would be bound by their ethical obligations never to pose as someone else in order to get access, but there's no telling that their secretary or someone else in the office wouldn't try to do that. So beware.
Oh, that sounds really sneaky.
Hey, a lot of stakes are high, and so people do what they feel they have to do.
when there's a lot of money or jail at stake, it's amazing what people will do.
Well, social media has really changed how we do everything. So I think, you know, paying attention to how it impacts our lawsuits and our lives and, you know, lawsuits in our lives is probably good advice. So.
And if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, just go to bed.
Don't post on Facebook.
Don't post. Don't
Thanks,
tweet.
ladies. That's it for today's show. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'd love to hear from you. Send us your topics and your questions. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter. Have a good night. See you next time.